Hello and welcome back to Gunfighter Life. As always, I am your host, Michael Melito. First and foremost, I'm a Christian. God is number one, and I hope to recognize that in everything that I do. This podcast is no different. Roll into the bio and then the topic. If you want to skip, you can generally skip to around 3 minutes in. An abbreviated bio, since this is an abbreviated episode. First and foremost, I'm a Christian. I joined the Marine Corps at 17, did a couple of combat tours in Iraq. After that, I was an urban warfare instructor for the Marine Corps. Also served in the United States Army, both full-time and part-time. National Guard. Been a private contractor for a 3-letter government agency I won't specify. Been the commander of a tactical team to stop active shooters in a large metropolitan area. Been blessed to win more competitions than I can remember. State rifle and pistol champion a few times over. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and fingers for battle. I've also been a professional big game hunter and guide, doing that for a living. Not many people today can say they've professionally hunted and guided elk and buffalo and all manner of exotic species, but I've been blessed to say that I have, as well as hunting recreationally, anything from white-tailed deer on the East Coast to mule deer on the West Coast, and slaying bear and wolf and all manner of beast. Also been a professional firearms instructor for a long time, FBI certified, NRA, a bunch of other certifications. With that, guys, let's roll into the main body of this episode. We're going to be talking about Savage rifles. Savage rifles, I think, are kind of underrated. A lot of people know about them, and if you're a gun guy, you certainly know about them. But a lot of people, when they think of rifles, they think of the Winchester and they think of the Remington. And especially with Remington in the state that it's in right now, I think that I would choose, in fact, I'm almost certain that I would choose a Savage rifle over a Remington rifle. Savages, I think, are underappreciated because they're affordable, which kind of sucks for them because they outshoot a lot of guns that are not as affordable. If they probably charge 4 times as much for their rifle, they might be considered a high-end premium rifle like a Christensen Arms or something like that, even if they shot exactly the same, because they, in my experience, are phenomenally accurate rifles. In fact, of all the Brownings, Winchesters, Remingtons, if I had to assume which one was going to be the most accurate, it would be a Savage. If you gave me a similar comparable model of all those brands, the most accurate, if I had to guess which one it would be, I would guess the Savage. And I might be wrong, it depends from rifle to rifle. But the Savages, in my experience, are ridiculously accurate. So let's talk about their kind of classic Savage 110, the Savage Model 10, Savage Model 110, 111. That's kind of their standard, middle of the road, good, affordable, and you get a lot for the money, flagship, in my opinion, product. The Savage 110, the Savage 10, the Savage 111. They are phenomenal, good bolt-action rifle, 2-lug design, available in a ton of common calibers, both current production and past production. Savage does a lot of really good work. It's a very simple, rugged design. In my opinion, as good as the Remington 700. And in my opinion, generally more accurate. And in my experience, certainly more accurate. Good, solid, dependable, built like a tank, bolt-action rifle. Let's talk about one of their other rifles that I've had a lot of experience with, and that's the Savage Axis. The Savage Axis is their quote-unquote budget version of a rifle, and the Savage Axis is ridiculously awesome for the money that you get. I have had 2 Savage Axises, and I sold both, and I kind of wish that I had them, but I have one in the 243 and one in a 223, and both were ridiculously accurate. And I don't have pictures because I don't have the guns anymore, so I don't want to make up numbers, but they were ridiculously accurate rifles. I mean, to the point of if I had paid 5 times as much for a high-end rifle and it had shot the same group, I would have been super happy with it. They were ridiculously accurate, and I had 2 of them, and they were both accurate. And they weren't just accurate with like one particular, cherry-picked load. They were just accurate. They were accurate with all kinds of hand loads. They were just accurate rifles. Both of them, the Savage Axis. And this was, I think, before or just when they were starting the AccuTrigger. So the ones that I had didn't have an AccuTrigger. But you can literally just take a file on the parts, and I'm not telling you to do this. You should be a gunsmith if you're going to do this. But just take a file to the parts to interface together, and literally just with a file and maybe some polishing paper, you can give them ridiculously good triggers in a few minutes. I'm talking in minutes. Because if you look at the way the trigger operates, it's so simple and so good and so crisp that you can easily make those triggers fantastic. I had the 223. And I think I sold it mostly because I got it for a varmint hunting rifle. But I had really nice ARs. And I didn't really need two different things that would do that. So I got rid of it. But a ridiculously accurate rifle. And the 243 I got not for myself, but for a girl that ended up not working out. So we all know how that goes. But it worked out even better because I have an amazing wife now. But anyway, that rifle was ridiculously accurate. It was a great rifle in 243. I think I would say easily more accurate than my Remington 700 and 243 that I've taken I don't know how many big game animals with. I like that rifle. It's a good rifle too. But I paid more for it and it was less accurate than the Savage. And the Savage Axis comes in stainless steel, which is pretty awesome. I'm a big fan of stainless, if you haven't listened to other podcasts. I don't, shoot my gun and then clean it and oil it and put it in a safe. My guns get used. They get ridden hard and put away wet. And I like stainless when I can get it. The Savage Axis. And they do make the Savage Axis with the AccuTrigger, which is in and of itself a good trigger. They also just make the base model. I think they still make it with the regular trigger. Those are also phenomenal. Let's talk about another really cool rifle that Savage makes, and it's called the Hog Hunter. I think for a lot of hunting, for a lot of people, the Savage Hog Hunter, whether you're hunting hogs or something else, is phenomenal. Most rifles that you get bolt action today don't come with iron sights, and I think that's kind of a shame. Because if you want it to learn the fundamentals, if you want it for survival, for prepping, for things like that, things with glass, things with electronics, they can break, and they tend to break more than things that are just straight steel. And the ability to mount, let's say, a quick detached scope on that Savage Hog Hunter, you can look that model up. The ability to mount that on there and be able to take it off if it breaks. Or if you're hunting in thick brush, you just take off the QD mounts. And then you have a fantastically fast handling hunting rifle for in brush, for in the swamp, for things like that. So if you're going to pick like a one rifle to hunt or for defense or for prepping and survival and it was going to be a bolt action, that Savage Hog Hunter, I really think they kind of market it wrong calling it the Hog Hunter, because it would be good for all kinds of stuff, not just hog hunting. It also, I believe, comes with a threaded barrel. Put, a simple, cheap A2 muzzle brake on there. Not so much for the reduction in recoil, which it will give you, but mostly for if you're using it for hard use, like I say I like to do. If you drop it on the muzzle, you won't mess up the crown, and the crown is generally the most important thing, or one of the most important things for accuracy. So you get to protect that crown. You just screw on a $10, appropriate caliber muzzle brake and put a quick detach on there with, let's say a Burris, fast fire, whatever, or let's say a Burris full field, whatever. Burris is just a good affordable optic. And for a reasonable price, you can get a pretty good, awesome rifle or put on a good low power variable optic on that Hog Hunter. And that would be a pretty cool rifle. For prepping, for survival, for all around hunting. I almost bought one, and I didn't because I don't need it because I have Kimber rifles, and they pretty much do the same thing. But if I was looking at one, that's a fantastic rifle. In fact, if I get into full-time guiding again and I want a gun for a guide rifle, that would be not a guide rifle for me to use, but for a guide rifle for clients to use to learn to hunt or to take out. Or if they come with a gun that they just have that's just a complete abomination to guns and it just doesn't work right, to hand them that. I think that would be a fantastic choice. Another one that would be good all-around prepping rifle choice that I wouldn't mind talking about, we're probably familiar, if you're familiar with scout rifles, you're probably familiar that, Ruger makes a really nice scout rifle. Steyr makes a really nice scout rifle. Those are probably the most well-known. There's also the Mossberg MVP. You could kind of press into a scout rifle roll. And then Savage makes a scout rifle. I'm not super familiar with their actions, which action, if it's based off the 110 or 111 or Model 10, but they make a scout rifle. it's affordable. The one knock I would give on this, to be fair to Savage, is I think they use a Williams rear peep sight, and I've used those on 22s before and had them knock loose on a 22. So I'm not super confident in that on a big bore rifle. But that being said, that's not a very expensive part to replace. But they make a really cool scout rifle. So if you're looking for a scout rifle that's probably, like I said, very accurate and a rugged design and affordable, the Savage Scout rifle would be a pretty cool option. And whatever caliber they make it in that you decided you wanted it in. And then the last one I'll talk about is one that I've been considering getting since I'll be doing probably, it might be in the works for me to doing some more long-range rifle shooting. And I have rifles that I use for hunting that are good, but most of them are mountain-type rifles that are good for 1 or 2 shots. And then the rounds will start to walk on me, which is fine because I don't plan on taking more than hopefully 1 shot, maybe 2 in a hunting scenario, so I never really worried about it. But if I'm going to be teaching, there's a potential for me to shoot quite a few rounds. And for that, Savage makes an ultralight, which is a carbon fiber wrapped rifle, which makes it super light, super handy, and which theoretically should mean that I can shoot several shots without having a dramatic point of aim, point of impact shift. So that's one that I'm actually looking at, and it's very affordable. So I would say take a look at that one as well. Those are just a few of the really cool options that Savage makes. So don't just think that there's only, Winchester and Remington and maybe Browning rifles out there. Don't forget about Savage. Savage, they may not make the prettiest rifles all the time, but they make some pretty rugged, very accurate rifles. And I think if accurate and rugged and affordable are your criteria, Savage might be my first look. With that, guys, I want to say thanks for listening to this episode of Gunfighter Life. I hope that you liked this episode. If you think it was worth a fraction of a cost of a box of ammo, please consider supporting. You can go to Good Shepherd Training, scroll down to Patreon, and consider supporting like that if you thought this content or any other content was worth $1. Or you can just go to goodshepherdtraining.com if you want to see some cool pictures, some cool stuff that we do. Some of the other podcasts you may like, the Alpha Male podcast. And if you care about the important stuff, Simple Man Sermons, the preachings of a simple man called by God to share the good news of Jesus Christ. A few updates, guys. God does provide for sure. I just got a new job managing a gun company. It's not affiliated with this podcast, and I haven't gotten permission yet, so I'm not going to mention who it is. But let's just say I'm in a very pretty part of Arizona, managing a firearms and training company. I'm doing this on my lunch break to make sure I get you guys enough episodes. I don't want to fall behind. Obviously, there's a learning curve with any new job, learning systems, learning accounting, learning all that stuff. But I'm trying to keep it going for you guys. I've been thinking about this. And as a thank you for listening all the way to the end, I'm going to, instead of a tactical tip, I'm going to mention one more really cool rifle. The Savage Model 340, which is what kind of sparked this episode in my head. I had one of these in my hands the other day. And I've had them in my hands before. I think I've mentioned them on the podcast before. But it's a bolt-action 30-30. Most of you guys are familiar with the 30-30, the Winchester lever-action or the Marlin lever-action. They're great, fantastic deer-slaying machines. But Savage makes one in a bolt-action, the 340. And they're generally not coveted. So if you see one that's a little beat up, that's been hunted with, that still has a good bore, again, they're a very good, rugged, simple design. And just a magazine-fed 30-30 bolt-action, that's just a really cool rifle. And I don't think they command a high price. So you might be able to pick one up for a couple of $100. And it would be a great rifle. I kind of wish they'd reintroduce that in one of those like hog hunting rifles or something in 30-30 because it's a great caliber. But anyway, that's just a really cool rifle. If you see one out there at a gun show, just recognize it for what it is, a really cool, unique bolt-action 30-30. And a really cool rifle. And I think they came out pre-1964. I don't even think, the ones that I've seen, I don't even know, the last one I saw certainly didn't have a serial number. So if you want to go without a serial number, for whatever reason, you might be able to find one of them. It would still be a pretty cool and effective rifle for, deer-sized things. With that, guys, thanks for listening, and have a blessed day.